How much do you charge for your tutoring sessions? That's a really difficult question that I've battled with over the years, and it's something that I've really worked on to try to justify the price that I now charge and to change my mindset about my value, what I provide for students for their longer term prospects and futures, and why having a session with me is going to be worth that amount of money. So in this video, I just want to talk to you quite off the cuff and no script or anything like that. I just want to talk to you about some of the mindset changes that I've gone through personally, which have been really difficult. I've had to work really hard on this to understand, first of all, my value and what I bring to tutoring sessions, but also a mindset that I've had for a long time, perhaps from my upbringing, where my thoughts on pricing and business and things like that were probably very much like yours, where I thought that I wanted to help as many people as I could. So, in order to support people, I would keep my prices low and I would be competitive and win that work, get a full calendar, and make some money and transition from being in the classroom to tutoring full time. And that mindset change came from my watching Alex Hormozzi's videos, which I highly recommend. He talks about a unit of your time being worth a certain value. Yes, that's how tutoring usually works. And for full disclosure, I used to charge £30 per hour, British pounds, and I was getting plenty of work, and I felt like that was working well. I was competitive and I was doing a good job. And perhaps at the beginning you might start out like that. But what's been the biggest mindset shift for me is that parents are paying for an outcome. And the outcome really is for their child to be on a different path. If they don't pass their GCSE in maths, that sets them on a certain path. And if they do, essentially they have more options, they have more prospects. And in the longer term, for their child, the value that you're providing by getting them that pass could be in the order of tens of thousands, of hundreds of thousands of pounds potentially. So that is something that for me wasn't really a thing. I didn't really think long term like that. And because of my upbringing from a very working class background, that my parents worked really hard for me to go to university and to train as an educator. I think in that kind of format, and probably the same for most of my colleagues over the 20 odd years. They all come from very similar sort of backgrounds. We want to help people, but also we come from that kind of working middle class kind of background. So we're not used to the mindset of people who perhaps have a bit more money. They think very differently about what tutoring brings. So because we're perhaps our friends, our family, our close network of people who we tutor are probably of a very similar background as well, they see a price of say £30. Oh yeah, £40 is a bit much, like that's a lot of money. Okay. Whereas what Hormozy says is that the richer people see the longer term, like what am I getting from a year working with you as a tutor? And if you're providing their child with those more prosperous outcomes at the end, then they would see that as value and they would be prepared to pay a lot more money for that. So the way that I started to think about this is, as a teacher, as a tutor, we don't necessarily see our value in that longer term. We kind of, it's obvious when you say it, like, yeah, they've got better prospects at the end. But in terms of value and the amount of money that we're providing, just on the financial side, that was something that for me was a big shift. Because I might go for an appointment at a similarly qualified professional, someone that's been to university for a few years. If you go to an appointment for them, they were charging 60, 70, £80 an hour, and I'm charging 30. And why is that? Is it that we don't see our own value, or is it that we're competitive and trying to keep our price the same as everybody else, which is around that 25, £30 an hour? Some people charging 15. That has shifted for me because of my research, and this message that I want to provide to you is that when I was quoting this price to a client, they'd say, I want some tutoring for my child. And I said £30. They go, great, let's start tomorrow. So you can measure your conversion rate from the number of conversations that you're having. How many of those clients are saying, yep, I'd like to work with you? Even if they don't really know you, they haven't had a referral, or they've seen something, a Google review or something like that, perhaps, but they don't really know you, and they're like, yep, I'm happy for you to to sit on a Zoom with my child and to tutor them, and I'll pay you X amount of money. I was getting 100% conversion. Okay, every person I spoke to, they were like, yeah, that sounds good, let's go for it. And what Hormozy is saying is that if you're getting a high conversion rate, then your price is too low. And that was something that was one of the biggest mindset changes that I had, was that I should be closer to 30 to 40% conversion, where someone would say to you, oof, that's a bit pricey. That's the sort of thing that you actually want. And then you work on your sales technique and your guarantees and your previous experience and everything like that to actually convert those people at a higher price. And this is an ongoing cycle for me. I'm not at that 30 to 40% conversion. I'm still at 100. So I'm still pushing my price up and up and up every cycle. And I won't go into the price details just yet. That will be for a later video. But I'm still at 100%, and my price has more than doubled. So that is something that you need to think about, because we're not necessarily just selling to our close family and friends and our warm network. You can be selling to people outside of that network who haven't seen you yet, and you can be charging a lot more money based on your experience and what you bring to the sessions. So in these YouTube video series, I'm trying to give you different strategies that I'm implementing within the actual sessions themselves to increase the value, increase the efficacy, increase the outcomes for the students. But from my previous work, where I've got 100% pass rate, you can essentially guarantee that if a student goes with you for a certain amount of time, that they will pass. If they engage, if they do everything that you say in terms of going away, doing these study methods, implementing these strategies, doing this set amount of questions, you can start to provide not 100% guarantee necessarily, but a high guarantee that they're going to see positive outcomes as a direct result of working with you. And so what value do they place on that? That's the sort of conversation you can start to have. And I had a client recently who I quoted my price, this sort of glass ceiling that I'm kind of working towards. And they said, oh, that's pricey. And I was like, that's the first time anyone's ever said that to me. And they had their reasons, their personal circumstances and things like that. And I said, like, that's my rate. I'm fully booked at the moment. So for September, if you want to get into a session with me, this wasn't a fake thing. This wasn't me trying to milk the situation. This was genuine. Like I'm in demand. I've got all of my clients that aren't in year 11 and 13 continuing into next year at this higher price. That's what I was thinking to myself. So I knew that people still valued my time, my expertise. And so I was able to hold it firm at that boundary, ultimately converting that client. And then within a few sessions, they had their end of year assessment. They got their best ever score. And they were like, you know what, you're expensive, but you're worth it. Because that amount of confidence that their child had, as well as the score that they now got, they were so happy with it. They wrote me a glowing review, and the feedback that they give me is unbelievable, even though they initially were reticent to come with me on and to work with me. And I even said to them that and this was so difficult for me, by the way. I wanted to say to them, like, I get it, I've been where you are, I'll reduce the price, but I didn't. I stayed firm, and I wanted to essentially get from 100% down to like 90 something at this new price point, and it still worked. I was still converting 100% even at that higher rate. So I'm getting more confident in myself now that at that higher price, I can still provide a lot of value. I'm still getting positive feedback. People aren't saying like, oh, he's pricey and he's not really delivering. That's not the case. And so I'm just in this sort of iterative cycle of 5 new clients, try a higher price, see how you convert. If all of them come with you, say you charge £40 at the moment, try 50, okay, and see how many of those people convert. If you get 0, then that that situation didn't work. But what I'm pretty confident with, if you're providing a good value, you've got some reviews behind you, some testimonials, some word of mouth, that you'll be able to increase your price and still convert a decent number of clients. And you will be able to keep trying every 5. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I've just done 5 at this higher price. And all my customers that are continuing with me, I have told them that the price is going up this year. So essentially, I've had about 15 people convert at this higher price. And so the next 5 that are coming into the business, I will be trying the next level up. So this is just quite a candid account of what I've been doing. Just one thing I've been working on, increasing my price as a result of my research with Hormozy. Sometimes you might have to go for a client who just has a bit more money, and if they do, then they will probably value that output more than someone who doesn't have so much money, because they, like you, like I did, will put a value on that hour. They do not necessarily see the outcome at the end, which is potentially tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of extra income for their child as a result of the work that you're doing with them, which is genuine. That's what we do as teachers. We're putting students on these different paths. So have a think about your offer as it stands. What are you charging per hour? And if you've looked at my other videos where I talked about blocks of 10 and your cancellation policy, starting to implement these different things will make you appear more professional, and that you understand how you're providing this value for children and what you can bring to the table for them in terms of value. Okay, so have a think about your own offer, how you can increase it. Give it a try if you wish. This is just advice on and what I've done that's worked. I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to work for you 100% of the time, but I would give it a go for a few clients that are coming in, raise your price and see what your conversion rate is, and then go from there.